You're right, Tam, yeah. Before I get into the video, I know, I look a scruff, but I'm isolating. Who's going to see me? Apart from y'all lot on the internet anyway. In this isolate and create video, I've finally been able to make a proper start on the Gruffalo beds now. I've been modifying the frame, so that's what this video is going to be. Much more laid back than my regular project videos, but hopefully it keeps you inspired, keeps you creative, and hopefully it gives you something to watch while we're all stuck at home. So you may have seen in my previous isolate and create video that I brought the bed bases from IKEA, mainly because they was cheaper, but also it just saves a lot of time as well. The frames and sound, got all the hardware to put them together, so it saves me a lot of headache there, but I do need to modify them. As you can see, the corner uprights are quite thin, it's like 18mm material. Well, I want to be adding some MDF in the form of a headboard and footboard, and the one bed is going to get a long side panel and some smaller front side panels as well. You'll see as the build goes along. But this material isn't thick enough to really give me space to put a groove in to slide the MDF. So I need to make some new pieces to replace these. Now I made them from CLS. For the headboard uprights, I cut the pieces to 90cm long, and for the footboard pieces I cut them to 75cm long. So they're still quite tall, but there is that little bit of a difference just to give the classic headboards taller than the footboard kind of look. Now in terms of placement for where all the hardware will go, really helpful that these beds came from IKEA because all the pieces are all exactly the same. So I just used the side pieces that I removed to now act as a template for where to drill, so I know that the screws will go through, and I know that I can put the dowels in the same place as well. At this stage I didn't drill the holes for the dowels though, because I thought it would give me a bit more wiggle room if I was to make any mistakes, so I left adding the dowels until last. So with all the holes drilled, I can start putting it back together with the thicker uprights now. Rinse and repeat job. I did the same for both headboards and both footboards, just to make sure it all went together okay. Now as I said, I'm going to be using MDF for the headboard and footboard, and the plan is to have these to slide into a groove, so I need to create that groove. So I first measured to see what distance I had from the bottom rail on the head and footboard, and that came to 29mm, so I thought call it 30 and give me a bit of wiggle room. So I went over to my router table and I was using a 1/2 inch router bit. Now the MDF I'm using is 12mm thick, 1/2 inch is just over 12mm, but it's close enough for this job and it'll do. So I'll set the router bit to 5mm deep, I set the fence to 30mm away from the inside of the cut, and then I just work my way through each piece, and I raised the bit by 5mm each time, just so the bit didn't bog down and I didn't have to worry about the bit getting too hot and burning the wood and stuff like that. With the grooves formed in all 4 pieces for both beds, I can start putting them back together again. I've lost track how many times I've took them apart, put them together, but if you was doing this for yourself, obviously you can do this all in one go. You wouldn't be putting it together, showing it to a camera, taking it apart, doing a little bit, putting it back together, showing it to camera. So it is a quicker process if you're not filming it. The top section to the headboard on the IKEA frames had these 2 pieces that were secured together with some screws and dowels to create a kind of angled piece at the top. Well, I thought I don't need that because I'm going to have the MDF. So I took the 2 pieces apart, so I've now got 2 boards. Extra material is always great. And I fit them both between the uprights. I went about 15cm below the top, and these will back up where the groove is. So when I slide the MDF in later, they'll be able to butt up against this piece and it'll give it a little bit of support. So if you was to push the back of the headboard or pull the footboard, that kind of thing, then it won't break through because it's got some actual wood behind it to support it. To put the long rails in place, I needed to drill a large hole into the bottom of the uprights, just so the screw could make it all the way through, because this material is a lot thicker than the original material that was in this framework from IKEA. So these larger holes just allow the head of the screw to sink in and for it to connect with all the hardware on the bed. With the bed together for the upteenth time now, I can see it all goes together well, and it's pretty simple to put together, so I can take it apart again to put grooves in the back and the front pieces, and I did that again at the router table. Before putting the beds back together again, I added the dowels and I glued them in place permanently for the headboard and footboard. These will fit in the car nice and easy. They haven't got to be took apart again at this stage, so I thought get them done, get them all glued up, and I haven't got to worry about them now. The long rails to the beds won't get glued in place permanently because these need to be took apart so I can get everything in the car. But what I did do, I glued in the dowels into the rails so I didn't have to worry about losing any by taking them in and out all the while. Them in the rails permanently. They can then slot in dry into the head and footboard, and the screws can secure them in place. I was going to leave the video here, but I decided I've got to cut the MDF anyway. We had some lovely weather, so I got the headboard and footboards cut for both beds, Dead simple, 12mm MDF. I measured the distance between each groove, cut it using my track saw and slid them in place, and thankfully the fit. It was that worrying moment because it's quite a tight fit trying to get it in between the grooves. Once it's lined up right and you've got it parallel, it does slide in quite easy, but it was that worrying moment of this isn't going to fit. But it did, it fit, and I think they look really good. I've got to go back and I'm going to be cutting some treetop shapes in them. I've got to do the long side panel, the front panel. There's loads of painting to do, but that'll come up in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed these kind of isolate and create videos. I know they're not a typical step-by-step how-to, they're more laid back, but I'm just trying to keep you updated with what I'm doing while I'm self-isolating at home. I know a lot of you watching them at home as well, and you're kind of looking for what you can do, and I'm hoping that this will inspire you a little bit. Maybe there's things that you can be doing, creating some furniture from IKEA packs, I don't know, you'll come up with something, but I hope you like them. If you did like them, please give them a thumbs up. If you didn't, give them a thumbs down. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to all my Patreon supporters. Can't thank you enough, guys, for all your support. I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notifications. That way you'll get a pop-up or an email whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. You may have noticed that during my time in isolation, I've begun growing a very manly beard, and you will have also noticed that it isn't at all patchy. But my plan behind this was for intimidation purposes when visiting supermarkets, but all it seems to have garnered me was sympathy. So I've decided it's time to get rid of it, but this is a great opportunity for some light entertainment. Let me demonstrate. Nope. 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 Maybe. Maybe I'll leave that one. Kind of missing there. Maybe the handlebar moustache was a good idea. Maybe some other time. No, definitely better. Day 9 are laughing instead of crying. And thanks to all the Karens out there who decided to hike up Snowdon during a pandemic. The whole of the UK is on lockdown. Well, joke's on you, Karen. With all the shops shut, there's no managers to complain to. Now that we are on lockdown, I think we all find it easier to relate to the stories our grandparents told us. Stories about making do with nothing during the war. Stories about just getting on with things and not moaning. Well, they've soon changed the tune. Now they want a whole hour in the supermarket to themselves. Now I've noticed that a lot of people have been using board games and jigsaw puzzles as a way to keep themselves occupied. Amateurs, get yourself some flat pack furniture. I just brought 2 single beds from IKEA. The first one I'll inevitably smash up when the pieces don't go together right. The second one is to replace the smashed up pieces from the first one. Now I assure you, I'm just putting these single beds together to keep myself occupied. It has nothing at all to do with the fact that my missus is sick of me on day 1 of lockdown.